Is this thing on? Whoa. Hey. Hello. How are you? How are you doing? It's been so long. It's been since like April, I believe. So 3 months. I should have been done with this by now, but I'm not. And there are good reasons for that. So in April, I kind of took a step back. I decided to focus on some other things. I started going back to therapy. I started, really just doing a lot of self-reflection. I think there was a lot of creative energy in flow and in motion during that time. And then it all kind of came to an abrupt stop. And I had a lot of reflecting that was going on. That being said, what's really cool about taking a break in April and then I'm coming back now, fully ready, baby. Let's do this. Let's close this bad boy out. I feel like I haven't lost really momentum or anything because since starting this Artist Way course, I have continuously been doing my morning pages. I've woven a lot of this philosophy into my life and kind of let some of these ideas that Julia Cameron has expressed, I've let them really marinate and come through in my life. And right now it's really amazing. She in week 7 and I guess in week 6 as well, she spoke on a lot of things that were very impactful to me in April when I was on that course week. And it really hit me. It really hit me hard. And I feel like I'm jumping around right now, but all this to say, I'm just really stoked. Like, I still have creative momentum, creative fire within me. I'm still exploring different ways to creatively express myself, trying out YouTube videos, YouTube shorts. Lately, I've been doing like TikTok videos. I've even been trying out Twitch streaming. So just opening up different avenues for my creative expression. And yeah, I've actually done week 7 about 3 times. No lie. I've read the material, done the courses, or the prompts, about 3 different times. So I'm ready to give a synopsis on week 7. I've also already done week 8, but I did it a couple months ago, so I'm ready to hop back in to week 8. And then I'm excited to move on to week 9, 10, 11, and 12. And really, really honor the commitment to myself. And I know there are a couple people who have expressed how they've enjoyed watching these, so honor a commitment to you as well. To close out at least this round 1 of the Artist Way. So let's do it. Week 7. Week 7 is about recovering a sense of connection. This is the week that I crashed out in. I had a crash out in April, and it's funny that this is the week that I had a crash out in because a lot of the themes that were coming up in my life that I needed to work through and that I realized were big blocks in my life were about this sense of connection. Julia. So the highlight of this week, or the synopsis, I should say, is we turn this week to the practice of right attitudes for creativity. The emphasis is on your receptive as well as active skills. The essays, exercises, and tasks aim at excavating areas of genuine interest as you connect with your personal dreams. Beautiful. She starts off talking about listening, We're listening to, the morning pages are helping us listen to our sensor, which is really actually one of the biggest things that I've noticed these past few weeks, having not actively been working on the course. But I've been noticing how the voice of perfection, which is in this week's lesson, I've been noticing how the voice of perfection has been really stopping me from moving forward. And I've been listening to that sensor that says, you know, this isn't good enough, that you need to do blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. That voice that's limiting me. I've been really able to like tune into that and listen to that, which is really cool. She talks about how art is not thinking of something. It is not necessarily like creating something from you. It's actually a matter of pulling from whatever divine source there is and writing it down. And I love that perspective because it takes the edge off. You know, sometimes we think, I have to come up with something that's brilliant and creative and, you know, all the things. But it isn't really a matter of me coming up with anything. It's a matter of me just listening, or all of us just listening, writing it down, and getting into the habit of expressing creatively, which is just that channel. So she says, when we get something down, there is no strain. We're not doing, we're just getting. Someone or something else is doing instead. Instead of reaching for inventions, we're engaged in listening, which is her whole thing. It's about listening, being present in the moment. She even says we're more a conduit than a creator of what, she says, we are more the conduit than the creator of what we express, which I have that underlined because conduit is what it has been like the keyword that I have been striving towards. It's the keyword that resonates with me, or key phrase that resonates with me, that I am seeking to become more of. It's just me tapping into the universe, channeling and expressing, and being a vehicle for expression. Yeah. She talks about like how it kind of like the stream of ideas is like a river. And I think I'd mentioned this in another video, but even Lizzo in an interview not too long ago, I think she's talking to Jay Shetty. She's talking about how, you know, you have these ideas for albums or music or whatever, and it's kind of like you're pulling from all these ideas. And sometimes our censor, we stop ourselves and we say, oh, I can't, you know, I'm a pop artist, like I can't be doing a disco album, or I can't do like a rap album or whatever. And she's like, do that thing, express it. So yeah, I love that, because when you're the conduit too, it's just kind of being filtered through your life experience. And I ultimately believe that a lot of creativity and a lot of artistic expression is expressing a lot of the same things, a lot of the same messages over and over and over again, just with different personalities, different flavors, different zest to it, much like we as humans are the same thing ultimately in the end. There are just all these different variations of us. And I feel really similarly with creativity in that, where it's, to me, there's like this, a true like namaste. Like the light in me recognizes the light in you. We are all one in the end, and that recognition of us being one. That's something that happens, or that I don't know, I sense when I separate my personality and me from the creation or the creativity in itself, and I tune into being a conduit. She has a section on perfectionism that I have highlighted, I underline, I give little exclamation points because that's something that I really like, I don't want to say struggle with, but perfectionism is something that comes up often. And it's come up in the vein of stifling me from creatively expressing myself because I want it to be a certain way. You know, I have, like, I don't want to blame it on my zodiac, but I'm a Virgo and I have certain things that I want it to be a certain way, and I have a certain vision in my head. And I think part of the fun challenge is to like meet my own expectations, but I'm learning that actually what I need is to let the perfectionism go, is to make shitty stuff, and just to make it. Just not to even grade myself on the execution, but to give myself high regard, high marks, not high grades, but to give myself that completion just for doing it. So that's been like something I've been really tapping into for these past few weeks. Again, this is probably like 3 months that I've been working on a lot of the themes from week 7 alone. And this is a big one. She talks about how perfectionism is a refusal to let yourself move ahead. I have that one. Look at this. I have it highlighted, underlined. I got the exclamation points because that's something that I do. That's something that I absolutely do. I stop myself from creating because I've stopped myself before I even start, because it doesn't start how I want it to go. It's like I'm expecting to be perfect. She has this whole thing talking about how, directors get upset with themselves when they don't make Star Wars on their first film. And that's exactly what I've done. I do that at times. And that's been like what I've been really kind of reflecting on and learning from and trying to overcome and burst through. I have a bunch of notes that I've written in here too, because she writes in here, we correct our originality into a uniformity that lacks passion and spontaneity. And I just love this idea of perfectionism sucking all of the uniqueness out of your creativity, out of what you're doing. Because sometimes I'll just look at something and I'll pick it apart until there's nothing left with my creative pursuits. And it reminds me a lot of, when people try to go viral online. You have marketers, marketing agencies, marketing people, you have companies, you have a bunch of people who are spending, 40 plus hours a week just constantly thinking, how can I get viral? How can I get more views? How can I blah, 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 blah. Like, there are even creators, content creators themselves. They're spending so much time thinking and strategizing and planning and living in an illusion, pretending that if they just have it thought out perfectly and if they just kind of execute it perfectly, exactly how they thought it out, then they'll get the numbers and the reward that they're looking for. But what I noticed is most of the people who go viral, who end up getting attention of the masses, I really feel like they've captured a moment in whatever they're capturing, TikTok, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. They've captured a moment of genuine authenticity. The example that comes to mind is that dude during 2020 who is drinking cranberry ocean spray on his surfboard, listening to, was it Rhiannon? Landslide? I don't remember, but listening to Fleetwood Mac. just having the absolute time of their life. And I think that's like, we all love that video because dude was just vibing. Like, he wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to be anything other than who he was in that moment. And he just happened to record himself doing that. And I think there are so many examples of that. And I don't know, it's just interesting. I just noticed, yeah, sometimes I feel like, even myself, like, it's been really interesting kind of quote unquote like creating content and really kind of putting myself out there in terms of creating like YouTube videos, YouTube shorts, TikToks, and stuff like that. There is this part of me that wants to like perform, or that inherently knows that I'm being watched, quote unquote. And I feel like sometimes just that awareness, me thinking someone's watching me, or there's something recording me, or whatever, it's interesting how it changes you so that you feel like you have to perform. You know, in Judaism, I'm not going to pretend to know much or anything about the Jewish religion, though what I do know, the essence of what I know, I love. I think it's so beautiful, and I resonate with it so much. But I was talking to someone a while ago who was talking to me about, I forget what it's called, but the cloth that, you know, Jewish people wear on their head. I know what it's called, I'm just not remembering it right now. But essentially, I was talking to someone about it and how they explained it to me that it's a symbol. It's a reminder that God is watching. Because how you act when you know you're being watched is different maybe than how you act when you don't think you're being watched. And I think in the light of like religion, it's a really beautiful thing. There are a lot of different ways that you can interpret that, but the way that I interpret it is that, you know, when I know that, or when I feel that like God is watching me, it makes me want to do good. It makes me want to do better, right? Whereas I think when the ego gets involved, when we know we're being watched, sometimes it makes us want to perform. It makes maybe, you know, I think a lot of like Twitch streamers, how it makes people want to be loud and overtalk to each other to be seen. So it really just, I don't know. I reflect on this a lot because I want to creatively express myself, and I want it to be as authentic as possible, as I'm able to tap into at the time, in every present moment. And I think every moment is different, but I don't know. That's something that I think about a lot. And that's what I've been kind of working on, is letting go of the perfection that's performing to meet an expectation, and just letting myself be very authentic in my expression. And then also asking myself, what does that even mean? What does that mean? What does it feel like? What does it feel like for me to be expressive and authentic in that expression? What's the difference between me not being authentic in that expression? And I think that's a journal prompt. That's a morning pages prompt for sure. Because I feel like you don't know until you know. Sometimes I'll like watch myself back when I'm like editing a video and I'm like, I was not being authentic in that moment, was I? I was like performing. But I also like, I don't want to judge myself for that, you know? I don't want to judge myself or anyone for that, really. Like, it happens. So, I'm rambling on about this, but it's really interesting stuff. She even says in here, she says the perfectionism calls, to a perfectionist, there's always room for improvement. The perfectionist calls this humility, when in reality, it's egotism, it's pride. Perfectionism is not a quest for the best. It's the pursuit of the worst in ourselves, the part that tells us that nothing we do will ever be good enough. She says a book is never finished, but at some point you just stop writing it and you go on to the next thing, which Rick Rubin also talks about too in the Creative Act. He says, you know, how do you know when a project is complete? You know, because you're ready to move on to the next one. And so I've been using that as a sign to myself too. I've been using like I don't know, I guess the passion, the instinct, that initial like surge of excitement. I've been kind of trying to capitalize on that and say, I have to execute on whatever it is that I'm feeling exactly in this moment, because it'll probably change into something else. And then what I'm feeling right now won't resonate as hard down the line. That's something that I feel a lot with yoga, with teaching classes. Every week I'm like, what am I feeling this week? Like general theme. Maybe every day there's like every day there's a different kind of micro message, but the general vibe of the week, I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling this kind of playlist. I'm feeling like this kind of music is the vibe this week. And then I'm like, what's the message? What's the message that's coming up today for me right now that I can express and share with people and use as fuel for a message of this class? And I know sometimes I'm like, if it's Tuesday and I'm planning my flow for my Saturday class, I'm like, well, I don't know what the vibe is going to be on Saturday, but fuck, it's Tuesday and I'm feeling this, and this is my authenticity right now. Here's what I'm feeling. I feel like we need this position. I feel like we need this. I feel like here's the general theme of what I want to talk about. And then the day of, Saturday morning, I'm kind of meditating and saying, what is the refined message that I want to tap into, that needs to be tapped into? Maybe there's someone that's in that class that I'm able to speak to, because Saturday morning I'm meditating and maybe the message is coming to me again as a conduit. The message is coming to me that says, this is what you need to talk about, because the universe knows that this person is going to be in my class and this is what they need to hear. Or at least that's like what I hope. That's what I hope. Yeah. This whole section on perfectionism just hit me like a brick. It's so good. She goes on to talk about risk, and this is really where she's talking about accepting and being okay with doing bad, shitty work. Yeah, I think it's funny. I think a lot of people really have this concept in their mind of being an expert. This is something I hear a lot in business. People are like, well, you have to be an expert in your field, and you have to have the tone of expertise, and then you have to have all these credentials that talk about how you are an expert at X, Y, and Z. And when I was getting my MBA, I took a class, and there was like a group project, and we gave this task of creating or putting up a tent blindfolded. And it's just like a silly little experiment about communication. Your team members are communicating. Okay, you need to put this together in this order and blah, 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 blah. And essentially one of the people who was blindfolded, like his feedback after the exercise was, he was like, well, I wish I'm not like an expert in this. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, is there a fucking expert on setting up a tent, dude? Like, what? You gotta be like Bear Grylls in order to know how to set up a tent? Like, the whole point of the exercise is to be uncomfortable. Like, the point of the exercise, it doesn't even matter if you finish it or not. The point of the exercise is just communication and just, working well with others and maybe like having blind spots, blah, 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 all these metaphors. But I felt that because I've done that to myself as well, where I've limited myself from maybe experimenting or trying something just for the fear that it'll come out bad, like stopping before I even start. So, this happens to me with Minecraft a lot. When I love to play Minecraft, sometimes I'm just like, I'm bored of this world that I created and I didn't get diamond on my first mining expedition, so I'm just gonna recreate the entire world. Like, what? I'm crazy. We're all crazy. It's so silly. So she has a bunch of prompts on like, okay, what would you do if you weren't worried about failing? Would you try stand-up? I actually probably might. There's like a little bit of me that's interested in that. I don't know if anyone would laugh. I don't necessarily think I have material, but again, like, what are things that you would do if you weren't afraid of failing? And this also reminds me a bit of the leap, right? The leap is just trusting in yourself, and that blind leap of faith that sometimes it gives me anxiety to think about because I'm thinking about it in too grand of a way. I'm thinking people are taking leaps of faith by quitting their job when they don't have a second job in place or they don't have any other income streams. And they're just like, I'm just going to let God take care of it. And it's like, that gives me anxiety. So that's not going to be my leap of faith. Maybe one day, maybe you just keep taking leaps and eventually that is the next logical leap that you take. I was talking to my boyfriend Eric about this. Like, maybe artists, they've taken all these different leaps of faith and maybe that's just the next one. That's the next one. But for me, the leap is to just create something and not care about the output. My leap of faith is to take the leap of just executing and expressing something and hoping that it lands on someone. That is my leap of faith. The hope that this will resonate with someone, that someone will feel what I'm feeling or feel something. I don't know. But I've been thinking a lot about that too. She also, in this chapter, she talks about jealousy being a map. It isn't something that is supposed to, fill you green with rage. She just talks about how if you're feeling jealous of someone for whatever they have in their life, that it's an opportunity to reflect on yourself and to say, well, how does this reflect on me? Like, and it's funny, when I took a break in April, I had an experience where I don't know if I would necessarily call it jealousy. It didn't have like a sting of jealousy, but it felt like, to me, I became very aware of a gap in my life that I saw other friends have. And I felt this gap of community. And I think I even made that video on it and I got very Yes, I did. that was my last video. I got very emotional about it because I was just feeling like I wasn't feeling a sense of community in my life. And there are a few other people that I know who have this beautiful sense of community. And I guess if we wanted to akin that sensation to jealousy, that would be fine. No judgment on myself there if I did feel jealous, but it was mostly like inspiring. You know, it was mostly inspiring because I was like, but inspiring, but also painful. It was very painful to see other people build this beautiful sense of community, and the dissonance, feeling like I didn't have that myself, was a painful experience. But again, how she talks about it's a map. So it just showed me where I want to be. It showed me, like, it pointed the North Star to where I want to go. And then I felt the dissonance against where I am now. Or where I was then, at least, because right now I feel really, really good. And maybe it's because it's summer. Maybe it's because I spent the past few months, like, really focusing on community, trying to connect with people. And that sometimes can be like chasing your tail because, you know, you connect with one person and then it's been a while since I've connected with another person, and then I have to kind of like make my rounds with friends and family. And sometimes that, and then I'm like, well, I need a me day. Like, fuck, I'm exhausted. Like, I need to recharge. I need an artist date, you know? And so, yeah, that's its own thing. But I guess that's a good place to be. So, to conclude, week 7, great week. I've done it literally 3 times, at least. I'm looking forward to moving forward. I'm looking forward to getting back to these weekly videos. I'm looking forward to not completing out the artist way per se, but I'm excited to uncover more of sweet Julia Cameron's advice, sage wisdom. I'm just excited. I'm excited to continue this pursuit of creatively expressing. And yeah, we're doing it. So week 8 is recovering a sense of strength. I'll read the synopsis. This week tackles another major creative block, time. You'll explore the ways in which you have used your perception of time to preclude taking creative risks. You'll identify immediate and practical changes you can make in your current life. You'll excavate the early conditioning that may have encouraged you to settle for far less than you desire creatively. I think excavate is like her favorite word because I never hear anyone use the word excavate except for when they're talking about an excavator, which I also have heard a lot of recently because of Eric's, young cousin being obsessed with excavators right now as a little boy. Okay. If you watch this, thank you so much. I'm wishing you the absolute best day ever. See you next week. Bye.